to do is stay a minute, just take your time. The clock is ticking, so stay. All you have to do is wait a second. Your hands on mine. The clock is ticking, so stay. All you have to do is stay.
A center for everything that is political and American. You're listening to The Garrison Douglas Show.
Trump's latest war of words is particularly striking because this time it's with the Republican chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, Bob Corker. Senator Corker making an extraordinary charge overnight that the president's actions are endangering the country and his threats to other nations could lead to another world war. This morning, a major Republican rebuke. Top GOP Senator Bob Corker telling the New York Times President Trump could put the nation on the path to World War III and that the president's tweets have in some instances undermined American diplomacy. He concerns me, Corker told the Times. He would have to concern anyone who cares about our nation. Corker also saying he's alarmed by President Trump, saying he treats his office like a reality show, like he's doing The Apprentice or something. The harsh words coming days after Corker, the influential chairman of the Senate Foreign Relations Committee, made this striking comment.
I think Secretary Tillerson, Secretary Mattis, and Chief of Staff Kelly are those people that help separate our country from chaos.
Over the weekend, the president went into attack mode, slamming Corker's decision not to run for re-election. Mr. Trump tweeting, Corker begged him for his endorsement, and when he said no, Corker dropped out, adding, didn't have the guts to run. Corker contradicted that account to the Times, saying the president actually asked him to reconsider, firing back on Twitter. It's a shame the White House has become an adult daycare center. Someone obviously missed their shift this morning. The face-off is notable because Corker, a Tennessee Republican, was once a staunch Trump supporter. But after the president's controversial response to the violence in Charlottesville, a rift opened up.
The president has not yet been able to demonstrate the stability nor some of the competence that he needs to demonstrate in order to be successful.
Corker's concerns come amid the ongoing North Korean nuclear crisis after Kim Jong-un touted his country's nuclear arsenal over the weekend. The president delivering a vague warning, tweeting, only one thing will work. Later asked for an explanation by NBC's Peter Alexander.
What's the one thing that'll work with North Korea? Well, you'll figure that out pretty soon.
The president also waging a new battle over immigration this morning, with the White House demanding a border security crackdown in exchange for protecting young undocumented immigrants known as dreamers from deportation. The Trump administration circulating a wish list in Congress. The most controversial request, funding for a southern border wall, a key Trump campaign promise.
We will build a wall, believe me.
Also on the list of immigration proposals, cracking down on sanctuary cities, tougher action against unaccompanied minors, and beefed up border security. In a statement, Democratic leaders said the White House can't be serious about compromise given the hardline policies they're asking for.
All right, welcome to the program, everybody. Let's just unpack what we've just heard today, okay? How about we just do that? Over the weekend, well, it didn't just start over the weekend, but it seemed to have heightened over the weekend with President Trump calling out Senator Bob Corker about some sort of endorsement that may or may not have happened. President Trump said the endorsement, or that the request for an endorsement happened, and that he wouldn't give it, and then that Senator Corker decided, all right, since I'm not getting the endorsement, I guess I'm just going to retire at the end of my term. This, to me, is, this is just petty politics. President Trump wants to appear as he normally does, as if he's in control of the situation, as if, nothing's going on, and that anything that is going on isn't his fault, and that, everybody else is flailing and falling and failing and all that type of stuff. But Trump remains strong, and, people are still coming to him and all that type of stuff. That's what he wants. And I can't say whether the request for endorsement happened or not, but that was the purpose of this tweet. It was to show that Bob Corker is weak and that Donald Trump was strong. That was the sole purpose of that tweet. Now, could you argue that that tweet was inappropriate? Yes. As I was putting together the promo for tonight's show, I couldn't help but laugh as I was writing the words, "The President of the United States got into a Twitter war." Didn't matter who the Twitter war was with. It was just the mere fact that the President of the United States hadn't been engaging in a Twitter war over the weekend. To put it in perspective, I myself haven't gotten into a Twitter war since I was in high school. And even that wasn't my senior year. I got into a Twitter war over some nonsense my sophomore year of high school. And that was when Twitter first started taking off. But I've matured. I don't engage in Twitter wars like that, in personal character assassinations. But of course, this is what's going on right now in Congress. Bob Corker responded to the charges. He responded to President Trump's tweets, saying that it's, as you heard in the video, or as you heard in the audio tape earlier, it's a shame that, the White House has become an adult daycare center. Pettiness. Pettiness, folks. The level of disrespect to the office has degraded. There's nothing left. There is no more respect for the office of the president. And I can sit here and run circles and saying who began the, degradation. Was it Bill Clinton? Was it Ronald Reagan? Who, was it Richard Nixon? Who was the one? Was it Kennedy, by having all those mistresses in the White House and, taking, reportedly, like heroin or meth or whatever it was. But what we can say, I'm not even going to say whose fault it was that began it, but what we can say is that it happened, and that we are officially seeing the end of the dignity of the office of the presidency. While there might be, the same level of respect among our armed forces based off of protocol, and a select few Americans who just hold on to that office in their hearts. They refuse to believe or subscribe to the current trend of lack of respect of the office. You're going to have those people out there. But overall, the illusion of the presidency has died. It has died. We hear things and say things on social media quite often. We can sometimes see in a presidential re-election campaign the opponent say some things, but not necessarily about the president's personal traits, but rather, and even if they were personal things based off of fact, you wouldn't have seen Mitt Romney attack Barack Obama, saying, that it's a shame that the White House has turned into an adult daycare center, implying that President Obama was incapable of just basic sanity, that he needed to be looked after But that's just that. So I had asked a question to a few people who came out on top of this Twitter war. And the reason I asked that was because oftentimes in a Twitter war, someone comes out with a really good dig, and that's the person who wins the Twitter war. Even if it has nothing of substance or juice or whatsoever, just the power punch of a Twitter war can determine victory. And what the resounding answer was from virtually everyone who I asked, even a couple friends of mine, was that it was two things. It was either Bob Corker had won that exchange with the whole adult daycare thing, or two, America lost. So no one won. All I know is that America lost. That's what I've been hearing. So that's just where we are right now with this whole tweeting thing. But I do want to address, of course, the charges, the alarming charges at least, coming from Senator Corker about President Trump possibly bringing about World War III. I'm going to be trying to bring on someone who is more versed in foreign policy so we can have this discussion in greater detail. But I'm going to provide just a little 2 cents about this because, to say that the President of the United States, because of his actions, is about to bring World War III to life is alarming, and it should be paid attention to. It's not just some random senator. This is, someone who chairs or sits on the Foreign Relations Committee. So this is a person who has knowledge of what's going on with our nation's foreign policy, our intelligence, all that type of stuff. And so if this person's saying that, we need to at least heed or at least discuss it. And what I do know is this. This is what I do know. President Trump refuses to participate in diplomacy. He really doesn't. President Trump sees diplomacy as something that stands in his way. He's not a constructivist. He's not. He doesn't believe in institutional liberalism. He's a realist. He believes in realism. He believes essentially that his opponent is going to attack him, and so the only thing he could do is attack first. That's his thing, and he's trying to not give off that appearance because he understands the way our system works right now. And he has 15 people yelling into his ear, telling him to do otherwise. But ultimately, let us be real. President Trump wants to bomb North Korea. He wants to do it. He wants to do it. And the reason I know he wants to do it is because I sometimes myself have realist tendencies. And once I participated in a simulation one time, in regards to, foreign affairs, international relations. And one of the things, there was a crisis that had been, occurring in a foreign country that I was dealing with. And in that foreign country, they had, had a civil war and were taken over by essentially a military coup. And the military coup was being run by an individual who was the leader of a giant terrorist network. When I had worked with several of my partners, i.e. allies, or classmates at the time, to figure out how to handle this, there was an option put on the table. And the option was put down to just bomb the living daylights out of this country. We take out the leader, don't tell him it's coming, bada boom pow, kill him. Then we send our military in. We send up occupying forces. We kill anybody who is still alive that was connected to the terrorist network, and we focus on building democratic elections. There was going to be a lot of civilian deaths, but, that was the first thing. There was a lot of problems with that plan. And when I first walked into that class, I would have thought, yeah, it sounds messed up, to kill all the, to just drop a massive bomb and continue bombing the country. There's a lot of people who can get killed. But at the end of the day, before I learned what I knew, before I started understanding more and more the consequences of individual actions, bombing would have been my first choice. Because it was quick, it was decisive, it showed strength. I bombed them. It shows I'm not afraid to attack, and it takes care of a lot of the problems. So once that mindset entered, it was hard for me to lose it. But as I learned more and more and more about the institutions and the different diplomatic strategies we can utilize, I became less and less of a person who relied on, first of all, massive military intervention, as well as, but mostly importantly, bombing. But in the midst of the discussion of this particular issue, bombing had somehow gotten back onto the table. And part of me just couldn't help but consider it. This idea of just massively bombing this country would take care, in the ways presented, so easy. And even though, majority of my thoughts were saying, that just wouldn't work, there's too much fallout, there are moments where, at peak frustration with the simulation, you just couldn't help but say, you know what? Bombing would just be 10 times easier. And deal with the fallout later. Sure, there might be a generation of people who raise up against my country and my people and try and attack us again, 20, 30 years now through terrorism. But that's the next guy's problem, essentially. And so the reason I bring this up is because the idea of bombing someone and knowing you could do it easily and take them out, it speaks to you as a realist. It speaks to your inner not humanity, but it speaks to you at a level of your primal instincts almost. That when you know someone's planning on attacking you, your primal instincts don't tell you to establish a tribunal or establish open dialogue to figure out exactly how you can prevent it from happening. What does the other person want exactly? What can you offer them? That's not your primal instinct. Your primal instinct is to either run and secure yourself and your possessions, or two, go up to the person in the middle of the night and kill them. Those are to protect yourself. Those are your primal instincts. And it's hard to sometimes move away from that. So that's why I know that the president wants to bomb North Korea. You can hear it in his words. You can see his actions telling Secretary Tillerson that, okay, diplomacy was nice. Okay, cool. You tried it, but you know what? Forget about it. I know how to deal with these guys. There's only one way to deal with these guys. That's bombing. That's military force. The fact that in every breath he can't help himself from mentioning the very fact that he could just completely destroy North Korea. His fascination with nuclear weapons. President Trump wants to bomb North Korea. And unless someone in that White House has enough sway, it's going to happen. Because there's no one with any authority to stop him. But there's got to be someone with influence to stop him from having a first strike. And I don't know who that person is. It could be the vice president. But I don't know if the vice president has that kind of sway, other than threatening to resign, which would cause a lot of chaos in his administration, effectively probably ruining it before it really began. But he wants to do it. And everything else in the meantime has been everybody, doing things to distract him from trying to bomb North Korea. That's what we're seeing. He has a loose temper, folks. You know it. And if you're a big fan of him because of this, it's probably because he's relating to your more primal instincts. He's probably appealing to the tough side. This idea of talking tough. And talking tough is fine and dandy. I've always believed that you need to come from a position of strength. But hollering and screaming and calling people a rocket man, tweeting at your allies and calling them names, stupid and losers, isn't talking tough. It's just talking stupid. It's talking mess. It's trash talking. It happens in sports all the time. And oftentimes, the guy who does the most trash talking is the one who loses the most. Because he knows he can't go through with what he's saying. So the only thing he can do is release some of that pressure by talking. If he can't shoot, he's going to call you out for your dribbling. If he can't catch, he's going to call you out for your throwing abilities. He's going to call your girlfriend out. He's going to call your boyfriend out. He's going to call your mother out. He's going to call all these things to throw you off your game to help even the playing field because he knows you're almost one step ahead of him. It's trash talking. It's not tough. But that's what we're seeing right now. I think that's very important for us to pay attention to. So, like I said, that's my little interpretation of what's going on right now. I think the president is saying a lot of things that are dangerous. I think there's a lot of people in the administration, as Senator Corker said, who are essentially standing in between a chaotic foreign policy and maintaining American leadership. And those people are indeed Rex Tillerson, James Mattis, and Vice President Pence. I believe those people and John Kelly. I believe those individuals are standing in that way and standing in the way of those two things from meeting. If you've ever watched Seinfeld, there was an episode where George had two personas almost. There was the Independence George. It's the one that everybody loved. He was telling his friend Jerry, there's Independent George. It was gawky store George, lying George. And Jerry responded saying, yeah, I know that George. I love that George. And George had responded by saying, but he's dying, Jerry. He said the second his fiance walks through the front door, he will, basically relationship George, will kill Independent George. And that same metaphor applies here. The foreign policy that we love and know and love and have utilized for over a century to maintain American leadership, the second that the Trump chaotic foreign policy walks through that front door, it will kill centuries worth of American foreign policy. Like that. There's no getting around it. It's dying. And there's only a few people right now who are safeguarding it, who are standing in the way of that door being opened. So that's kind of what I have right now on that. I look forward to talk about this further because we're going to be going into a lot more detail on this. I have a lot of questions that I want you guys to be able to, get answers to. So I'm going to be having an individual come on to talk about this in greater detail, talk about a little bit of the history of our foreign policy, give a little bit more military background on what we're seeing and what some possible, solutions might be to the problem that we're not already doing. And maybe grading the president on his foreign policy so far. So in the meantime, we'll talk about some other things, but look forward to that conversation because it's going to be a good one. That's going to be, I believe, next week. All right. But in the meantime, we will be right back.
You're listening to the Garrison Douglas Show.
T-Mobile's Unlimited now includes Netflix on Us. That's right, Netflix on Us. Get 4 unlimited lines for just $40 each, taxes and fees included. And now, Netflix included. So go ahead, binge on Us. Another reason why T-Mobile is America's best unlimited network.
Dissensions in the ranks of California's Democratic congressional delegation, with one member saying that Nancy Pelosi should step down as House Minority Leader. KPIX5's political reporter Melissa Kane here with details. Melissa?
Yeah, Alan, yesterday, Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez told a group of journalists that congressional party leadership needs to go. She says newer members of Congress need to have a chance to lead. But we talked to another member of Congress who says Sanchez is just trying to jump the line, and she may regret it.
Their contributions to the Congress and to the caucus are substantial, but I think there comes a time when you need to pass that torch, and I think it's time.
Los Angeles Congresswoman Linda Sanchez wants Democratic Party leaders to step aside. Leaders like James Clyburn, Steny Hoyer, and the #1 Democrat in Congress, Nancy Pelosi. All 3 of these leaders are in their late 70s. Sanchez is 48.
I think that we have too many really great members here that don't always get the opportunities that they should. And, I would like to see that change.
So far, 10 Democrats in Congress say they will not run for re-election, as 7 of them are leaving to run for a different office. Sanchez claims these Democrats are leaving because they don't see room to move up. But Sanchez wouldn't give any names of potential new leaders.
I'd be interested to see, who is interested in stepping up and taking on that responsibility, because I know we have the talent.
San Mateo Congresswoman Jackie Spears says Sanchez is the one who wants more power.
There is never a loss in Congress for unchecked ambition.
She says Pelosi has spent the last year promoting new members, including Sanchez, who was just elected vice chair of the Democratic caucus.
Far more opportunity for younger members than when I was a younger member, and I would suggest that it's more the ambition of one individual who, frankly, has earned her position through Nancy Pelosi.
And she says Pelosi has no reason to be afraid.
She will be the leader of the Democratic caucus as long as she wants to be. She has earned it. And for those who are trying to step over her, they're going to find that they're going to be stepped on before long.
A former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown agrees. He says Sanchez will be punished for speaking out against Pelosi and other leaders unless she has the votes to elect new ones.
The minute she says those words and she's without the votes, I guarantee you she goes to the back of the line.
Now, a spokesman for Nancy Pelosi said in a statement today, quote, Leader Pelosi enjoys wide support in the caucus and has always said she is not in Congress on a shift, but on a mission. And Leader Pelosi is focused on winning back the House, and anything else is a distraction from our path to the majority. Melissa Kane, KPIX5.
Okay, all right. So, this here just... It just tickles me, folks. It just tickles me, ladies and gentlemen. Another call for Nancy Pelosi to step down. not from her congressional seat, but simply from House leadership. Except this one isn't even just with Nancy Pelosi. This one is with a whole host of people. Linda Sanchez, the vice chair of the Democratic caucus, wants not only Nancy Pelosi to step down, but she also wants Minority Whip Steny Hoyer of Maryland to step down, as well as the Assistant Democratic leader James Clyburn to step down. He's from South Carolina. These folks, if you don't recognize the name, they are Democratic leadership. They are the party leadership right now. With the fact that, Senator Schumer is, the Senate minority leader, so he's leading the Democrats in the Senate. He's brand new, okay? So while, in power structure, he might outrank those individuals, he is, in political sense, lower down on the totem pole. Because he's the new guy on the block, which is weird that someone of his age would be considered the new guy on the block, but that's what he is. He's the new guy on the block, so he has to do his time. Right now, Nancy Pelosi is handling things. She is right now the highest ranking, politically speaking, individual of the Democratic Party. Right now, everybody else at the DNC, it just got there. All right. So they don't have any political capital yet. So she is the one to represent that party. And this is just golden, folks. Especially the response to it. If you remember in that tape, the woman who was speaking specifically said that if Representative Sanchez from California, does not have the votes, she will be punished for speaking out of turn. This is how they operate, folks. This is how the Democrats operate. Nancy Pelosi will physically punish Representative Linda Sanchez, who's a member of her own state caucus. She is from California, just like Nancy Pelosi. They're from the same state, and Nancy Pelosi will physically punish her because of the fact that she's stepping out of line. All she's doing is giving a suggestion that I'm going to give too, ladies and gentlemen. A suggestion that Nancy Pelosi step down. Not because, yes, it's time for a new generation of leaders, as Linda Sanchez says, but because of the fact that Nancy Pelosi is a cancer on the party. We saw how the fact here in Georgia, the state of Georgia, the Ossoff Handler race, the race to replace Tom Price, those seats, or the negative campaign ads, were using Nancy Pelosi. She is still the richest target for Republicans. We love her. We absolutely love Nancy. She is from the most liberal part of California. She is from the wealthiest part of California. Nancy Pelosi is literally everything that middle America despises about politics. She doesn't understand majority of American values. She only understands the section that pertains to her, and then she tries to impose that on the rest of the world. She hangs out with the Hollywood elites because she's in California, so she's constantly around, the George Clooney's and all that type of stuff. She comes from a district of vast amounts of wealth, so she can't relate to, working class families. And that's another problem. When you can't relate to working class families, when you hear struggle, the only response you have is just to make things free. So that's another thing. But that she represents everything that any Republican just despises about the Democratic Party. That's who she is. Not to go on with the fact that most Republicans think she's starting to lose it a little bit. And I can't say for certain myself. You know, I'm not one, I don't like to push propaganda or anything like that. But when you hear her talk, ladies and gentlemen, I don't know what's going on there. There have been rumors for years. I don't know if it's a drinking problem. I don't know if it's a drug problem. I don't know if it's a mental health problem, if she might have had a stroke at one point or another. But she just cannot talk. And it's not something that has happened forever. That's not something that's been like, it's a part of her thing. It's only been within the past, 7-8 years. And it's only getting worse. She slurs her speech often. She makes basic mistakes at the podium more and more now, like calling President Trump President Bush. And it does it multiple times, even after being told in a mid-press conference that, man, are you talking about President Bush or President Trump? And she said, oh, yes, I'm talking about President Trump. And then goes on to say President Bush again in the same press conference. So there's something there that I don't know what it is exactly, but she's got to deal with that. The party's got to deal with that. And so I agree with Linda Sanchez. And I just find it hilarious that she actually is going to be punished for saying something that's supposed to help the party. Because it's going to help the party. But the egos, ladies and gentlemen. Bob Corker said the White House has become an adult daycare center. Unchecked ambition? That's what they're calling this? The idea that handing reins of the Democratic leadership in the House of Representatives over to younger people with fresh new ideas is bad for the party? The idea that handing those reins over to fresh new leaders is considered unchecked ambition? Folks, this is nothing more than a campaign to maintain power. That's all it is. Nancy Pelosi knows that she shouldn't be leading the party at her age right now. She's old. Half the guys up there are too old to still be leading. But most of them, aren't in the condition she's in right now either. So they could get away with it. Nothing to do with women or men or whatever. I can tell you this right now. If Mitch McConnell was out there slurring speech outside of his new normal, outside of that, if he was slurring speeches like Nancy Pelosi does, if he was having Twitch attacks in the middle of a CNN town hall debate, I can guarantee you people would say, all right, Mitch, time for you to go. And right now, it's a health thing. It's an age thing. And on top of it, it's an effective thing. Nancy Pelosi is effective in one area and in one area only. Fundraising. That is why people are afraid of her. Because she controls the purse strings of the Democratic Party. You want to know why Obama was almost afraid of her? Because she controlled the purse strings. Obama was the greatest fundraiser the party has ever seen. Because Nancy Pelosi gave him access to the people with the funds. That's why they're afraid of her. As the old saying would go, she set up the pins and everybody else knocks them down. That's her role. And no one can set up pins better than Nancy Pelosi. So as long as she still maintains the purse strings, ladies and gentlemen, as long as she still says that I'm going to stay in Congress and I'm going to maintain my, power over the fundraising portion of the Democratic Party, she's not going anywhere. The only thing that will take her out is that there's another individual who can match her with fundraising capabilities. Because no one's going to risk pissing off Nancy Pelosi by voting for whoever Linda Sanchez wants to be House leader or House Minority Leader. No one's going to risk pissing her off to try and pick someone who can't even come close, can't even raise 10% of the money that Nancy Pelosi brings. The Democratic Party's already losing in fundraising battles with the Republicans. They're not going to try and lose any more. So that's the fear. It's fundraising. That's all it's been. That's all it has been. No one cares about Nancy like that. No one cares about her like that. It's always been about the fundraising. And that's why she will stay. Unless something happens that is so outlandish that they can't help but say, all right, Nancy, it's time for you to go. They are going to ignore everything else. That's what I know. So, Linda, it was nice knowing you. Looks like you're probably going to get primaried. Or it looks like you're losing your vice chairmanship in the next Congress. That's for sure. It's going to be nice sitting as the last member of the House Committee on Dog Catching. That seat's going to be beautiful. And I feel bad for you, Linda. I really do. I feel bad for Miss Sanchez, everybody, because she is speaking truth. She is speaking truth. And whatever the reason for it, whether she wants to be leader of the party or not, she is speaking truth and she is going to be punished for it. She stepped out of line, according to other Democrats. So we'll see how they handle it. But all we know is that we're not going to be hearing from Linda Sanchez for a little bit. Oh, because did I forget to say that Nancy Pelosi also controls the media? She's the one that ordered that no Democrat not go on the Colbert Report, if anybody remembers that. She controls media access as well. So we're not going to be sending Linda Sanchez on for a while. Shoot and a miss, honey. That's what I call it. Shoot and a miss. Or sorry, swing and a miss. Sorry. You swung and you miss. And unfortunately, in these situations, you don't get 3 strikes. You get 1. And you blew it. So, let's see what happens next, ladies and gentlemen. I don't know what's going to happen, but I guess we're going to find out soon. But that's all the time we have today. I'm going to be off this Friday. Like I said, I'm trying to plan a really good episode for you guys the upcoming week regarding this whole foreign policy. It's going to be the foreign policy week. All right, so I'm going to be trying to have some guests on to talk about that. But, you know, if you guys have any questions, I'm still going to be doing things during the week through social media and on the website. Check the blog. I'm going to be writing some articles. Check for some short videos for my blog. So, to do that during the week, and we'll be all caught up, all right? But in the meantime, stay safe, have a good night, and thank you for tuning into the Garrison Douglas Show.
Center for everything that is political and American. You're listening to The Garrison Douglas Show.